Last time that I heard dancing in the dark, we were sitting in my car, but baby, I guess we didn't make it too far. And I thought that I'd be tougher than the rest, and I could get you off my chest, but maybe I've just got a hungry heart. Every time that he comes on, I can see you in that red dress singing along, and I don't know what to do, so hey Bruce, shut up Springsteen, leave me the hell alone. Shut up Springsteen, let me get back home before you keep singing. I start thinking all about that girl that I used to know. Why don't you take the thunder road?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and we're doing a twofer tonight. We will be talking Bruce, but we're also going to be talking an up-and-coming singer-songwriter and sharing his music. So, Gary, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for having me. I'm super pumped to be here. I love Bruce, and I'm ready to dive right in. Thank you for having me.
Well, yeah, tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Gary Frost. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Colts Neck, New Jersey. I first got into songwriting, really country music style, a couple years back, and ever since I've been touring locally with my band. We've played across New York, Pennsylvania. I played a pretty big show yesterday in Point Pleasant, opened up for a big country guy named Michael Ray, which was pretty big for me.
Nice.
But back and forth to Nashville a bunch. I got a place down there, so kind of doing the whole back and forth thing. When I'm not up here performing, I'm down there writing, and all vice versa. And really just, I want to become a songwriter is the main thing. And every step of the way, every chance I can play, I'm always playing.
So growing up in Jersey, why country music?
I think I got exposed to it in high school. I had my whole family was really big into country music. All my friends were going to a bunch of concerts. It really started, I would say, with Florida Georgia Line was a big part of it.
Okay.
One of those concerts at this place called PNC. It's in Homedale, New Jersey. I saw them there, and from the minute I saw them play, I was just hooked. And just their style and their music and the words and the way they said it in such like a poppy yet had that twang to it. It's what really got me wanting to write. And that's probably where it first really kicked off, I would say.
So I always like to start at the beginning. So growing up, it sounds like your parents were into a lot of country music. Talk to me. What kind of music what were they playing around the house when you were a young toddler and getting into your teens?
So when I was growing up, my parents were playing everything from, my dad was a big Bob Seger fan. So
okay.
That'd be on all the time, some Springsteen songs. My mom was the one that was really into country. A lot of stuff back, like Hootie and the Blowfish, Luke Bryan, things like that. I know as I got a little older, started turning to like Jason Aldean, stuff like that. That's where I get a lot of influence from, I would say. Probably the Luke Bryan, Jason Aldean era. Just missed that turn of like the Merle Haggard type music, more into like the poppy stuff. But ever since then, as time's gone on, my parents have been showing me a bunch of new stuff. And that's probably where it came from in the household, I'd say. A lot of Luke Bryan, Hootie and type stuff. Eric Church was a big one as well. My mom was a big Eric Church fan. She's been to a couple concerts by him over the years. And that's probably where it came in the house. And that's probably how it, vultured its way into my life. So
yeah. Do you how about are the classic country, like you mentioned Merle Haggard, you talk about Willie Nelson, Hank Williams, Johnny
Mhm.
Cash, were those later became an influence, or is it more of the modern music that kind of speaks to you?
Well, I appreciate like the older stuff. Like some of my favorite older guys, really Travis Tritt is very one of the bigger guys that I try to grab some influence from.
Yeah.
Um, I would say most of my style comes from a mix of like, I don't know, modern rock and then like very
Okay.
country, like modern country. That's kind of like the way I like to describe my music.
Okay.
Travis Tritt probably
Okay.
most influential.
All right. Did how early did you know you wanted, like, well, first, when did you start playing guitar, and when did you know you wanted to write music?
Actually, it happened one night at a campground when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
It was a karaoke night in like a barn, and I was about 7 years old. And my parents signed me up without me knowing, and they made me pick a song. So I picked "Sweet Home Alabama." And
Okay.
I got up and I sang it, and everyone was like, "For a 7-year old, he's not terrible." So when we got back, like that next week, my parents like signed me up for like voice lessons and stuff, and then that's what really took off. Kind of, I learned how to play the guitar, a little bit of piano, um,
Mhm.
and then been writing ever since. But that's like the main start to to
Yeah.
everything. It was pretty funny.
That's your that was your debut, right?
That was it.
That's pretty cool. Did you so when we talked a little bit, but um how did you start? Did you start being a solo artist? Did you try to get a band together? I'm thinking of like,
Mhm.
Brad Paisley's, talking about building a band, and all of a sudden his
Yeah.
pop, he does a lot of music that I really love. So did you kind of a little bit of both? Like, okay, I'm going to try to do some music by myself. I'm going to get a bunch of buddies together.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I would say for the first couple years, it was mainly just me and my guitar,
Yeah,
um, playing a lot of covers and stuff, and some pretty bad songs that I had written.
sure.
But then over time, as I started to like outgrow some of these places that I was playing at. And in order to get to the bigger venues, bigger bars, things like that, I needed to put a band behind me. So actually, a couple people that I grew up with, they
Hmm.
were very big into music. We started jamming together, and it turned out great. And I've been with them probably since COVID, and like was
Yeah.
starting to fade out when things started to get slowly back together. Um, I don't know when that was, like beginning of 2021, I'd say.
Okay.
And then, yeah, probably for the last year and a half, been playing most of my shows, 95% of them with the full band. So,
Do you remember what was the first gig that we went, pinch me, I can't believe we're playing this?
that's a good one. Honestly, there's been a couple, but the most surreal one for me was actually like 24 hours ago. It was the one yesterday. That was
Okay.
my first time opening for like a major national act who was
Yeah.
like, he's got pretty much the same style that I'm trying to you know take influence from. It's a lot of that
Mhm.
southern country rock type thing, like with a hint of pop.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was a pretty big venue. That was probably about 1,500, 2,000 people last night. Definitely the biggest that I've ever played. Not doing covers and things like that,
Yeah.
my own stuff. But yeah, I would say that. And before that, like things like the Stone Pony, Asbury
Hmm.
Park.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
played there a couple times. Playing there in another couple weeks, opening up for another big guy. Doing a pre-party for that inside, so that'll be cool.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah,
Do um let's let's talk about the reason we came on you. You have a new song out.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit about it. What would tell my audience of what it is, and then talk about what was the inspiration for it.
Yeah, so pretty much speaking of Asbury Park, it's the song is called "Shut Up Springsteen," and I know what you guys are thinking. It's not any slander towards Bruce Springsteen or anything.
Right.
It's actually my neighbor. He lives a couple houses down. It's pretty cool. But I would say the whole essence behind that song is it's about like love and loss. In other words, for example, my song, one of the first songs that I showed my girlfriend when we first started dating was "Dancing in the Dark." She never heard it before.
Hmm.
the whole idea behind it, I got some derivatives from the song Springsteen by Eric Church. And I was like,
Sure.
I want to create like a song that makes people think about, like, when I hear this song, I want to immediately tie it to this person or this moment. And for me, it was always hearing that Dancing in the Dark with her for the first time. And I thought about, how awful would it be if something were to happen to us? And from that kind of perspective, if I ever heard this song again, I wouldn't be able to listen to it. So that's kind of where Shut Up Springsteen kind of came from. It could have been with any artist. It just so happened that for me, Dancing in the Dark tied in to the beginning of my relationship. And the whole song kind of touches on, like, going for a drive, not wanting to, get rid of this thought of this girl in your head. And throughout the whole thing saying, just shut up, Springsteen. Like, I can't listen to you anymore. I keep thinking about her and it's driving me crazy. That's pretty much where it came from.
Yeah, I love that because music is so powerful and it connects us. There is a musician from Indiana called John Hyatt, and he's known more as a songwriter than he is a performer, though he's done his share of albums. And my wife found one of her best friends in high school started dating a guy named Rick, and Rick loved John Hyatt. And even though they got married, they ended up divorced, but we stayed friends with Rick. And Rick died of a brain aneurysm several years ago. And for the next 2 or 3 years, anytime John Hyatt would come into town, my wife would go, "It's too soon. It just too soon." She can't even think about that till finally, we went and saw him, and, she reached over and she squeezed my knee and said, "Rick's sitting next to us."
Yeah.
She felt that. But I think that's, I have another friend who, Tougher Than the Rest, one of his favorite Springsteen songs for him and his girlfriend. And then when they broke up, all of a sudden this song now just it's touching that wound, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what your song kind of talks about, right?
There's a bunch of different ways that it can apply to anything, but that's
Yeah.
the main part of it, about hearing that and thinking of, anything.
Yeah.
It just shows how powerful music can be, especially, depends on like
Yeah.
who's singing it, in a certain.
Absolutely. So growing up in Jersey, can you remember when you first discovered Bruce and what about his music spoke to you?
I would say it's probably in middle school.
Okay.
And I think the song was like Born in the USA is when we first really, because it was for like I think we were doing a project in middle school, honestly.
Okay.
That was like the main song. So
Yeah.
like, I got home and I started listening to it. My parents were like, "How the hell do you know this song?"
Yeah.
And like my parents, they've been listening to Bruce for, I don't even know how many years. But that was probably the first time I got introduced to it. Then over time, I wouldn't say that Bruce is my, my go-to artist all the time, but there's definitely a lot of songs by him that I definitely relate to and I love by him. From that album itself, I'm on Fire, Dancing in the Dark is the biggest one. Glory Days especially. And actually, I've never seen Bruce in concert yet, and that really kind of pisses me off, especially now with the whole song and everything. Like, I want to take like my girlfriend or something to see it just so we could relive that moment in person.
Well, yeah. And, that's one of the questions I ask in the podcast, Gary, is I say the amount of time, I always preference the amount of times you've seen Bruce perform live isn't a fair barometer of how big a fan you are, because it can depend on your age, economic situation, where you live.
Yeah.
And he's not toured, if you don't count Broadway, since like 2016.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's been a long time.
And I was just starting to drive in 2016. So.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I get the feeling he's ready to get back on that road. I think he is itching for that so bad, to hear that crowd and, to get out there and rock with us.
Oh, absolutely.
You talked a little bit during the pandemic. You took that time to write, to kind of explore. How does it feel being able to get out and perform in front of people now after this, this 2 years where we've been, we've missed that social interaction. Talk to me a little about that, Gary.
Yeah, it's definitely like it was weird at first, because I was doing a lot of like Facebook lives and like some like
Hmm.
bars would have like live events, and I did a couple of those, but it just didn't feel surreal. And then when I first got back, I don't remember where it was the first time. It might have been Bar Anticipation in Lake
Yeah.
Como. That might have been the first one, and it was packed, or it was Huddy's and Cold Snack, but we completely packed the place, and it was just like, wow, we're able to do this again. This is crazy. We had like 300 people there. Like it was just a good feeling just to be back on stage in front of everybody for the first time. People I've been looking at through screens for the last 2 years, just seeing everybody in person, seeing like, it was awesome. And then as soon as that happened, everybody started calling. Everyone wanted live music again, and then it just picked right back up.
Yeah. So what you talked about, you're spending some time in Nashville. Tell me about what are you trying to do both paths to try to not only be a performer your own right, but also as a musician and a writer, write songs that other people will want to record, and kind of a dual path to success?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that my main thing right now is, performing just because all over the Jersey Shore and everything.
Yeah.
But I do want to get into songwriting. Like I write, hundreds of songs like every month, really.
Yeah.
Probably about 100, 150 songs a month. And a lot of them, they would just sound better with somebody else. I
Yeah.
have all these things in my head, but if there's a different voice, a better voice for it, like
Hmm.
I've written songs for other people before with other people. That's kind of the norm in Nashville. You usually have like at
Yeah.
least 3 or 4 writers on a song. That's definitely the way to start and get my name out there, and then hopefully it leads towards going towards a solo career. That's the end
Hmm.
goal.
Yeah.
But writing's how I'm going to get there.
Good. So, being an opening act, how long do you usually? Well, talk to me the difference about building a set list when you're an opening act, and then like maybe when it's a smaller club and you're headlining. Talk to me the difference on building those shows. What
Mhm.
goes into what, and how do you tinkle with your, plan?
Yeah. So usually those smaller clubs where I'm headlining, a lot of the people there I know already, and they're already a part of like my fan base.
Sure.
You get a couple new people. So what I do with that, I just try to have fun, make it a good time for everybody. I'll usually play a little bit more covers as opposed to originals, stuff like that.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of people there know me. They want to have a good time, remember that, come back. Yesterday, and then in 2 weeks, for example, as an opener, you get a lot shorter of a window to play. So it could be anywhere from like a half hour to an hour. Like yesterday, I only had a half an hour, so I
Right.
had like 7, 8 songs. So I try to pick like my best originals and like 2 or 3 covers that I know everybody knows. Like for example, I did a Luke Combs song and I mashed it up with a Bon Jovi tune,
Oh,
and
nice.
I did that as the first song. I don't know if you're familiar with like Luke Combs, like When It Rains, It Pours.
Okay.
That song, I did the first verse, chorus, and then I took Who Says You Can't Go Home, first verse, chorus, and I blended them together, and people went crazy because it's the Jersey Shore.
Sure. Absolutely.
So it worked really well. So opening acts, you have to pick and choose what songs you're going to use because you want those people to join your fan base, follow you, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I differentiate between the two, I'd say.
So there was a point, much younger, when my wife and I first moved to Dallas. We had gotten to see a couple of local Dallas bands, right? And especially a singer-songwriter named Sarah Hickman, and she was just starting out. And I can't believe we did this, but my wife and I, because we're both in our late 20s, we would finish our gig, our day job at 5 o'clock, 5:30, get home, grab a quick bite to eat, and then take a nap. And we would set the alarm for like 9:30, and then we would drive to downtown Dallas because Sarah wouldn't start till like 10:30 or 11.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's Monday night. It's just, and we would stay for, the whole 2 hours, watch her. And then, we'd come home and, be tired the next morning. And we did that every Monday because there is a lot of fun going to see, whether it's Springsteen or McCartney or Billy Joel or, Jason Isbell, name whoever you want.
Yeah.
but there is a joy in finding like someone like yourself that, oh, Gary is so amazing, and dragging your friends. Oh, you got to hear this guy. And I assume this is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Sarah would recognize us, and Sarah would come back and say, oh, Jesse, Linda, I can't believe you're here again. So I assume you've got connections right? You're making these friends and these bandmates and these supporters that are like, they're not quite friends, but there's a relationship between your audience, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, without, people showing up to the shows and talking to you, you're just playing to nobody. That could be back on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
It's all about who you meet out there. I've met people from all ages, moms, I've met kids, everything. And you just make that interaction with them and they remember you, and then they come to see you again. And that's how it's really just a business, but you're having fun and making friends, along the way. It's awesome.
Yeah, I made that joke. There was a small band. They're still together. They're from Denton, Texas, called Brave Combo, and they do rock and roll polka. And they've actually been nominated for and won a Grammy for Best Polka Album of the Year, right? Wow. So they're good. But when we were like in the late 80s, early 90s, we would go, and I would joke, when I go see Billy Joel, he doesn't come afterwards and say, hey, Jesse, thanks for going to the show. I said, but my boy Gary does, right?
I'd be going to a lot more Billy Joel shows if he did.
Yeah, right. And it's also right. You mentioned, it makes me laugh because it would be like, oh, and here, sign up for my mailing list, right? Like, because that way I would, because I notice your website, you've got all your gigs coming up, and so you're emailing people like, hey, I'm going to be playing here. Would love to see you.
Got to stay at the top of their minds.
Yeah. Well, and especially nowadays, right? That there is so many things asking for entertainment, but there is something beautiful about going to, and during that pandemic, I missed it so much that you couldn't go to even a small little venue to hear a local cover band, that just and that joy of music. So it's so great that we're able to do that again.
Yeah, because a lot of it, there's nothing to do on the weekends and stuff. Usually you're going out like, now's the time you want to go out, listen to bands, like, dance, drink.
Yeah.
You don't do anything. But now that it's back, it's getting back to full force, and it's about time.
So you mentioned that's a pretty clever cover. What are other songs that you like that you kind of keep in your quiver to go, okay, crowd's kind of listless, let's pull this one out to get some energy going? Are there a few you keep that?
Yeah, so I got some country ones and some rock, for example. Okay. Like country, like Wagon Wheel, Country Girl, Shake It For Me, Luke Bryan. That gets everybody going crazy. Then you go more towards the rock side. I dive into Take It Easy, the Eagles.
Okay, sure.
And then John Mellencamp, Hurt So Good. That one I just started doing more recently.
Oh, nice.
Love that one. Bryan Adams, Summer '69.
Yeah.
Because I'm a country guy, but I like to throw in rock and stuff because I got that influence from my parents and stuff.
Sure.
Like that. So a lot of the times, people at the shows, if they're my parents' friends, like they won't know a lot of the country songs I'm doing or the originals. But then I sing one of those tunes, like a John Mellencamp tune, and they're like, "Oh my God!" Like they go crazy. So it's good to get that mix in there.
Do you do any of like Tougher Than the Rest? I would think is one of Bruce's country songs, maybe. Or I'm on Fire. Certainly, I think you could make as a country song very easily. Yeah. Do you do some Bruce covers?
We've had a request to do one a couple times. We've done Glory Days. Yeah. But we hadn't really practiced it. So it was kind of just on the fly. Yeah. But I think it sounded pretty cool.
Very nice.
Because there's a lot, more Bon Jovi stuff.
Sure.
Bon Jovi's a little easier to incorporate with that country twang a little bit.
Absolutely.
So we do a lot more Bon Jovi, but we've tried some Bruce stuff before. Glory Days probably be the most common one.
Tougher Than the Rest, I think, would fit into your style. I think that's a good one. You could country that up because I've heard versions of that. Yeah. So what's next? Do do you want to try? You've got a single out.
Mhm.
Are you trying to raise money to try to do an album? What an EP? What's next for Gary?
So really right now, what's next is I'm moving down to Nashville, or I'm gonna kind of be like a snowbird a little bit. So I got
Okay.
some shows, but I'm gonna spend my main time down there writing and stuff. I got a couple singles that I recorded down there the last time I was there that I'm slowly gonna be releasing, gearing up towards like a full album. But
Okay.
every dollar that I make from my shows, I reinvest right back into my music. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of just saving up over time to release an album, because it's not cheap unless you're
No.
signed to somebody.
Yeah.
And right now I'm independent.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I've been working towards. And then I really just want to promote it. I had a
Yeah.
music video made for Shut Up Springsteen. That was cool to do.
Yeah. It's a
tried to
great
get that-
video. It's
Yeah,
really well done.
that was a lot of fun.
Have you kicked around doing a Kickstarter to try to do an EP or something?
That could be a good idea. I haven't really even thought about that, just because I've been
Yeah.
so focused on like doing single after single.
Yeah.
That's like 2 or 3 in the can right now that I'm
Mhm.
waiting on time to release.
Sure.
When it gets to that point, that's probably a good idea.
Well, if you decide, you're welcome to come back, and
Mhm.
I'd love to promote it anytime you've got a new single. If you want to
Yeah.
join me, I think you have a lot of talent. I think you have just the right sense of humor.
Mhm.
And like I said, you remind me a little bit, and I mean this as a compliment, a young Brad Paisley, just someone that just has a lot of energy, a lot of great heart. And so I'm thrilled that we've gotten to talk to each other.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk about when do you are words first or music first when you're writing?
That's a tough one. I would say words probably, just because I could have a random idea, and like
Yeah.
if I go through like my notepad and my phone, I just have like little snippets written down,
Right.
and then like usually like I get like hooks in my head and stuff. So
Sure.
like when I thought of Shut Up Springsteen, I was driving, and I think it was I don't remember. It might have been I'm on Fire that came on, because I have them in my playlist. The songs
Mhm.
randomly come
Sure.
on. And that's kind of when I got the idea, like Shut Up Spring, like that's
Yeah.
kind of put 2 and 2 together. And then I'm like, I bet there's a bunch of other songs I could use for this as well. So then I
Yeah.
started thinking more like that. But I
Mhm.
usually like to key in on certain words and stuff, and then I put the music in after.
Okay.
That's really my main, how I've done things for the last, I don't know, couple of years.
Sure. Yeah, that works. That works a lot.
Mhm.
So you talked about Jason Aldean being one of your big influences. Are there songs or albums that have really influenced you or inspired you that you go, yeah, this is what I'd like to work for. This is
Yeah.
what I'm working toward.
There's a lot of older Jason Aldean stuff that I really like. His album 9 is a really good one. But aside from just like country and rock, another artist that had really big influence on me as a songwriter was Ed Sheeran, actually.
Okay.
Growing up, I listened to every Ed Sheeran song, and I know he's a little bit different of a style, but I would say that's really like another push of where my songwriting, kind of originated from. Because when I first started playing out, I wasn't country. Like the covers I were doing were like Ed Sheeran, like One Republic, like things like that.
Sure.
Because I was just trying to figure it out as I went along. But a lot of Ed Sheeran's like older stuff. I would say new artists on the scene that give me inspiration, like John Party. I don't know if you're familiar. Like Tim McGraw, he's always
Yeah.
been, because they have that sense of like Southern rock mixed with like
Sure.
modern pop, and I just love the way it sounds, and I try to emulate that as best I can.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's part of the journey, right, Gary, is to find your voice, to find your, to find your style and what you're going to do. I think is all part of, and your musical journey will continue to change as you get other influences and you work on things, and oh, this didn't work with the crowd, and let me retool it. Oh, now then by this little tweak it'll work a little better. So that's just what it's all about.
Yeah. It took me a while to find like where I wanted to be and the kind of music I wanted to make, but once I found it, I've just been trying to hammer it out as best I can, and
Good.
been working so far.
Good. Anything else that I should have asked you that I haven't?
The only other thing I really try to promote is my upcoming show
Okay.
at the Stone Pony. I played there a couple times, but this will probably be the first time I'm really just doing like kind of my stuff.
Yeah.
But country artist Jake Owen is playing there on July
Okay.
24th.
July 24th.
Yeah, July 24th coming up. And
Okay.
before the show, I'm doing a pre-party inside the Stone Pony. So I'm
All
trying to
right.
get people there, and that's an iconic stage. I mean, that's where that's
Yeah.
where Bruce is like the king of like Asbury Park.
Sure. And so that's massive. Yes, that's a great thing. That's great. Good. Well, I will definitely make sure that this is out beforehand. Um, your if they want to reach you, what's the best way? What's the best way to contact you and what's the best way people can support you? Let's say, because my podcast is go all over, the country, the world. And so not everyone can go and see the show live, but what are other ways we can support someone like yourself that's, trying to bring their music out to the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I would say the best way is to just, subscribe to like my email list. The big thing for musicians nowadays is Spotify,
Okay.
which is listed on my website, which is www.garyfrostcountry.com.
Okay.
That's the best way to find all my socials, everything. Every share, every like, every follower, that all adds up in the end, because that's what a lot of these, bigger people look at. And then when they see, hey, he has a good following, a decent following, he's got, a lot of streams, that's when they start to take notice. So I would say, mainly streaming on Spotify,
Okay.
checking out my website. That's probably the best way they can help support somebody if they're not, from the area, can't come to a show or something.
All right. Sounds good. I will include all those links in the show.
Yeah,
All right,
you.
Gary. I know you've worked a show, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I got to ask you. I ask all my guests. I end with a Mary question. So if you are a Gary Frost fan and you found him on this podcast, thank you for checking me out. Jay Armstrong is a retired honors English teacher from the Philadelphia area. And when he was teaching, he would take the song Thunder Road, break it apart, look at all the lyrics, look at all the themes, and then would ask his class, does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road? So Gary, as a musician, as a young Springsteen fan, does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Yeah, I was thinking about this all day because I knew this was coming, and I'm going to say yes, she does.
Okay.
And the reason that she does is because, Born to Run, you just, Bruce wouldn't write about something that he wouldn't bring, he would go to the ends of the earth just to go anywhere he wanted to. You're going to go pedal to the metal. And I think anybody hanging out with Bruce is going to do that too. I don't think that they're going to slow down for anything. I think they want to hit the road running. That's what I think Mary did. I think that's why she got in the car.
I love it. That's a great answer. All right.
Yeah.
GaryFrostCountry.com. Shut Up Springsteen. Go to Spotify, like it, stream it. YouTube, he has it too. Give the man some likes. And on July 24th at the Stone Pony, go check him out. Go tell Gary that, hey, I heard you on Set Listing Bruce. Gary, anytime you want to promote a new song, just reach out to me and say, hey, Jesse, you got a few minutes. I'd love to have you on and talk again. And when you're ready to do that Kickstarter, let me know and I will help you kick off. All right, buddy?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're awesome. Yeah, this has been great. I'm so happy I got to talk to you.
Yeah, me too. All right, listeners, go get vaccinated, go get boosted, and let's be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. This podcast would not be possible without my wonderful group of patrons. I want to send a special thanks to John Munson, Mary Thomas, Terry Smith, Dale Hosick, Andrew Goddard, Stephen Malio, Alex Samada, Anna Lynn, Chris Bloom, Holly Mack, and Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Your support means the world to me, and you are forever in my heart.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast. That is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.